Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. I've decided to festive up the set a little bit for December, so I thought I'd add a few extra little ornaments and stuff to make December feel a little bit more festive for my videos. And today we're talking about episode 8 of Star Trek Discovery Season 3 entitled The Sanctuary. This episode had a few cool little moments in it. I wouldn't say it's my favourite episode of the season so far, but there were certainly a few little moments that were like laugh out loud. But overall, it maybe felt like a little bit of a filler episode midway through the season. But let's break it down and see what we can learn. There were some really nice moments in this episode, but those nice moments were small individual moments. They weren't big revealing moments that covered the seasonal questions like, you know, answers to the burn and so forth. We didn't really advance in a huge way on those topics. We advanced more on a person-to-person basis in this episode. Little steps forward rather than big revealing steps forward, I think. So the episode begins with Culber trying to find out what's wrong with Giorgio, doing his best to give her some sound medical advice, but as strong as Giorgio is and not wanting to show any kind of weakness, she's doing her best to basically just rip him a new one and be as snarky and catty and hostile as she can possibly be so that the real weakness inside of her doesn't show through to the surface, because she's clearly worried about what's going on with her and her flashbacks and blackouts and that sort of thing. And Culber's doing his best to help, even though Giorgio kind of doesn't really want his help or is just too proud to accept his help. Next we learn that Book's home planet of Quajan is in danger from Osira and the Emerald Chain, and they have to kind of muster up a rescue operation to somehow get there and sort out what's going on. Book's brother sent them a message, say they're in trouble, and they somehow managed to convince Admiral Vance to allow them to go to Quajan to help solve the situation. Next we meet Osira, who's the head of the Emerald Chain in this part of the Alpha Quadrant, and she's reprimanding her nephew Tolor, who we saw back in the Scavengers episode. He was the one that was in charge of the whole camp that Book was captured in. And we kind of see what she's capable of in terms of her displeasure at her nephew by beaming him into a cell occupied with a transworm that proceeds to eat him. It kind of sets up her as the antagonist of this group and to see what she's capable of. Next we get a morning briefing between Tilly and Saru as they're walking through the corridors of the ship and talking about Linus going through his annual shedding process. He's not allowed back in the mess hall until he's finished, you know, getting rid of his scales, and Tilly's brushing, you know, bits of dead skin off Saru's shoulder. Probably what was my favourite little moment of this episode, or series of moments from this episode, is where Saru is trying to come up with his own personalised let's go to warp phrase, you know, whether that be Picard had engage, you know, Pike's got hit it, and Saru's trying to come up with his own power statement to go to warp. And they're kind of toying with some ideas. They're going through execute or hit it or manifest. And it's a really nice little moment because, you know, every captain in Star Trek history needs their own little special catchphrase, don't they? And Saru's trying to come up with his. And Saru even gives a hit it a try, but he doesn't really pull it off too well. And it's sort of a bit cringy, which Tilly kind of lets him know that it didn't quite fit. It was a nice moment. And Stamets and Adira have been analysing the Navaran data combined with Burnham's black box recording information, and they have a point of origin for the burn, which is the Veruba Nebula. And from the centre of this nebula, when analysed and broken down, it appears is the music that we've heard before from the Barzan family, singing it to her child. Adira's been playing it on the cello. It's a tune that's sort of out there in the collective consciousness of the people. It turns out the music that everyone's hearing seems to be covering up a Federation distress signal from a ship that's lost in the nebula. I'm not quite sure how a series of musical numbers playing over the top of a bunch of sort of background distortion ends up being decoded as a Federation distress signal. Surely if there was a distress signal, you would kind of be able to isolate that. I'm not sure where all the musical themes and stuff work into it. It seemed a little bit of a messy explanation. Not like it's an alien language they have to decipher. It's a Federation starship distress call. That would be something that would think be easy to decode. It seemed a bit odd to me, but maybe we'll get to find out more about that in coming episodes. Turns out that all Federation distress calls have some sort of message encoded in them, but it's going to take Adira hours to encode this. So as a means of not giving us all too much information in one episode and sort of sprinkling us along the trail with the proverbial breadcrumbs, we're stretching that piece of information out into the next episode by creating this time gap that it's going to take to decode this piece of information. But finally in this episode we get a resolution in terms of the correct pronoun to use to address Adira. There's been some speculation because we all knew that Adira was a non-binary character. However, up until this episode, everybody's been referring to Adira as she. But we finally got clarification on the correct pronoun to use when addressing Adira, and that is they or them. She announced to Stamets that, you know, please don't call me she or her. I would like the pronouns they or them to be used to address me if that's not too much trouble. So the crew is off to Quajan to help out Book's brother and the rest of the planet from Osira. And Sara even tries out one of his new catchphrases, execute, but it kind of doesn't maybe really fit. There's a couple of faces on the bridge that are sort of like, what? Okay, so maybe he's still working on it. Next we have a scene with Pollard and Culber doing a scan on Giorgio to see if they can work out what's wrong with her. I love the moment when they give her the anaesthetic and Pollard asks her to count down from 10 and she starts giving some snarky cutting reply or whatever, and she just drops into unconsciousness within a second. It was a funny moment. Next we have a scene between Stamets and Adira where they're having a bit of a duet on cello and piano, and Adira tells Stamets that she is no longer having any hallucinations of grey. Next we get a scene with Mr. Rin the Andorian storming into a meeting that Tilly and Saru are having, trying to get off the ship to help Book, but he's not too keen on the fact that Osira is due to arrive pretty soon. She already cut his antenna off once, and he doesn't want anything else to happen, clearly. Interestingly, the actor who plays Rin the Andorian is the real-life husband of Mary Wiseman, who plays Tilly in Discovery. With Burnham and Book down on the surface, we meet the sea locusts, these little hovery, gas-filled insect kind of things that are all floating about the forest. They're kind of cool, I guess. And it seems like Book has the ability to kind of use his Aquaman-like powers to tell them to go away when he needs them to, but they can't do this on a larger level. It seems like Book's brother and the other people who are from Quajan have these Jedi-like or Aquaman-like powers to tell nature what to do. So you'd think if they just, you know, got 100 people all with this ability to sort of stand in a big line and just say, out to sea with you, sea locusts, they wouldn't have any problems and they wouldn't need to resort to doing deals with Osira that they regret in order to not have their harvest ruined or whatever the case may be. It's cool to see Book use his powers of nature once again. Hopefully we're going to get to learn a little bit more about these abilities that he has and maybe just sort of use them in a much larger sense, perhaps, in some future episode, rather than just these little cursory moments. At the moment, they're just a bit of a parlour trick. So again, we get another flashback from Giorgio, but our flashback doesn't really give us any new information than we haven't already learnt in previous episodes. We're seeing flashes of the Terran Empire, we're seeing flashes of a young Giorgio, we're seeing a bloodied knife and a person wearing a mask who's been stabbed, who's called San, S-A-N, and that this is very upsetting for Giorgio. This is the same information that we had in her last flashback. So we're not getting any new information or new imagery in her flashback. I thought we might get some new images or a little bit more of an insight into what's going on with Giorgio, but we kind of didn't really learn anything new we didn't already know. And I've got to say, that's kind of a little bit disappointing. I thought they might have given us a little bit of a new morsel of information about this, but we didn't really progress the story here. In the next scene, we get a little bit more of an insight into Book's relationship with his brother in terms of upbringing, Kahim. I've got to say, I really struggled in this episode to get past the thick accent from this actor. It wasn't really until the second time I watched through this episode with the subtitles turned on that I kind of understood a lot of what he said in the dialogue. His accent was quite thick. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys understood him perfectly well, but I did have a little bit of a difficulty in getting through some of the dialogue from him. So it seems like there's a lot of fuss going on about Rin the Andorian. Book's brother Kahim wants to turn him over to Osira and the Emerald Chain. Osira has showed up in her starship. She wants Rin the Andorian. And you kind of get a sense, there's something big going on here with Rin the Andorian and why they want him. But the end reveal isn't really that big a deal, to be honest, simply because he just happens to know that they're running a bit low on dilithium. It's obviously information they don't want to get out, but it's not something mind-blowing. It compromises their strength in the area. I think I anticipated Rin's involvement to be of a bigger scale or of bigger consequence than this. So seeing as how Osira can't get Rin from the Discovery, she's going to try to break through the planetary defense grid of Quajan to get Book and Burnham. That way she's got some bargaining power to the Discovery to get Rin turned over to her. Next we get a sequence where rather than attacking the Orion ship directly, because that would be kind of a bit of a breach of the Federation rules they were there under, as ordered by Admiral Vance, they decide, thanks to Ensign Tilly, to attack using Bookship. It's a cool action sequence. We get Bookship fighting against Osira's ship. Even though it was exciting, I did kind of feel like it felt much more like a Star Wars battle sequence than a Star Trek battle sequence. I think it was sort of like a Millennium Falcon versus a Star Destroyer type scenario. It was an exciting battle. I thought the effects were good. There seems to be a trend in the visual effects for Discovery where we have to have every ship doing spins. We see Bookship doing spins, attacking doing spins. It just sort of seems like there's a lot of visual effects work that sort of adds spinning spaceships to try to increase the level of drama or excitement. And I think you can kind of do that once or twice or three times or whatever, and it works. But I think if you kind of do it in every single visual effects sequence, it kind of loses its impact. And I sort of feel like this element of spinning, attacking starships is one that they sort of just maybe repeating a few times too many, perhaps. I think we just want to see something a little bit different. There's a nice scene towards the end of the episode where Culber and Stamets have a bit of a chat about how well Adira has been doing, and they have a conversation where they use all the correct pronouns. It's sort of like a test driving scene almost for getting used to calling them, they, and them and their and all that sort of thing. And at the end of this episode, we learn that Book's kind of impressed with how the Federation and Starfleet operates. They've helped his planet out. They've been struck with this business with the sea locusts and the Emerald Chain for years, and they kind of just come along and just sort it all out in the space of a day. So, yeah, Book's sort of impressed with how Starfleet and the Federation are operating, and he kind of wants in. So I'm not sure what this means for future episodes, whether Book wants some sort of field commission to join the Discovery crew as a crewman of some kind. I guess we'll wait and see, but we know that he's going to have a chat to Saru and see if his involvement or whatever on the Discovery crew can be made a bit more official, perhaps. There were some nice moments in this episode. I really liked the little moments where Saru's trying to work out what his catchphrase is going to be, going to warp, a little bit of humour, which I enjoyed. Our advancements in this episode seem to take a smaller form. Saru learning what his catchphrase might be. Adira informing the crew that they want to be referred to as they rather than she. And Book joining the crew, the Andorian, revealing that the Emerald Chain is a little bit low on dilithium. We got a lot of screen time with Giorgio's affliction, but we didn't really get to know anything new on that department. So we had a few little personal, character-based sort of steps forward, I think, in this episode, but nothing huge in terms of plot revelations, the overall season arc of plot. So to me, this felt like a little bit of a filler episode, but hopefully in the next episode, we will unlock the secrets of the Federation Starfleet distress call that came from within the nebula. I wonder what the distress call will say. How old the Federation starship that sent the distress message is going to be, and whether we're going to get any larger jumps forward in our overall season arc of unlocking the secret that is the burn. Let me know what you guys thought. Did you like the episode? Did you thought it was a bit so ho-hum? Or did you like it? Did you like the action sequence with the ships? Did you like some of the humour? What did you think of Kuei Zhan? What did you think of Book's brother? Kai Heem. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section and your overall impression of this episode. In the meantime, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe, check out my merchandise. You can check out the link to that in my description below. I'll catch you guys very soon for my roundup of the trailer and sneak peek for episode 9. And we'll see if we can unpick and learn any more information about what's going on with the message, Giorgio, and all the other mysteries that are presented with us. I'll catch you guys then.